Politics. It's the number one edgiest topic on the internet. There's few places you can go without the simplest of discussions descending into political debate. The fires of the triggered masses across all political spectrums rage constantly upon Facebook, Twitter and Reddit, as keyboard warriors don their metaphorical internet armor and poise their fingers tentatively above caps lock, ready to respond to the smallest of slights with a self-righteous fury. Luckily for us, I'm about to be talking about imaginary politics, largely completely unrelatable to the real world because it takes place in a setting steeped in multiple pantheons of active gods, monsters and magic. Yes, I'm talking about the Sword Coast, the location of many video games, books and comics. The region itself is located on the western coast of the continent of Faerun, which itself is located upon Toril, the main planet in the Forgotten Realms. Baldur's Gate is situated in the southern portion of the Sword Coast, specifically in a region called the Western Heartlands, which stretches from the coast of the Sea of Swords inland to the Stormhorn Mountains in the east. Other famous cities that you may have heard of in the Forgotten Realms like Waterdeep and Neverwinter are situated in the northern part of the Sword Coast and are not in the Western Heartlands, but they are linked politically to Baldur's Gate through something called the Lord's Alliance. The Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide shows us the current membership of the Lord's Alliance and includes Waterdeep, Neverwinter, Silvery Moon, Baldur's Gate, Daggerford, Mirabar, Longsaddle, Mithril Hall, Amphail and Yartar. Each city then has someone to represent them on the Lord's Alliance Council. In the case of Baldur's Gate, it's a man called Ulder Ravengard, who is a Grand Duke of the city and Marshal of the Flaming Fist, a powerful and respected position to be in. Of course, Ravengard isn't the only Duke of Baldur's Gate, there are 3 others, and collectively they make up the Council of Four. The Council of Four in Baldur's Gate dates back to the founding of the city, and prior to the mid-15th century, they were elected by the populace, who, according to the 2013 adventure Murder in Baldur's Gate, had to place 1 copper piece in the preferred candidate's coloured box. Literally any citizen of Baldur's Gate could stand for election, and once elected, they were elected for life. In fact, when a member of the council died or resigned, candidates would only have 10 days to make speeches on the city's streets, and at various guild halls and manors before the election took place. This process changed somewhat in the 15th century after the attempted coup of Duke Valarkan, which is also detailed in Murder in Baldur's Gate. Duke Valarkan and his band of the Red Moon Lycanthrope supporters attempted to establish Valarkan as the city's sole leader. They succeeded in killing 2 dukes and nearly slew Duke Dillard Portyr, but the Flaming Fist and the Watch banded together to save the young duke and drive Valarkan and the surviving lycanthropes out of the city. This event caused a fair bit of turmoil in the gate and triggered an election for 3 new dukes. However, the city still had many Valarkan loyalists, and the Patriot Families, which represent Baldur's Gate's aristocracy, were concerned that a new election could put undesirable dukes into power. Therefore, the surviving Duke Portyr was pressed to form a Parliament of Trusted People, now known as the Parliament of Peers. This parliament would carry the burden of decision-making and maintaining the law. They would also be responsible for picking the dukes, and where before there were 4 dukes of equal rank, there would now be a Grand Duke who would have 2 votes, with the others only having 1. The Parliament of Peers is made up of about 50 Baldurians who meet daily, though it is rare that all 50 are there at the same time. They discuss matters of the city, great and small, and then take recommended actions to the dukes who vote on them. A quarter of the peers are made up of citizens from the lower city, with the rest drawn from the upper city's Patriot Families. These Patriot Families vary wildly in their priorities. Many of those who serve in the Parliament of Peers are in the pocket of someone, usually the guild, and they spend their time in frivolous behaviour, often being seen as out of touch with the common folk. However, according to Descent into Avernus, there are those in the Parliament of Peers that have serious concerns about the inequality in the city.
I've nothing of value.
These civic-minded nobles use unorthodox channels to distribute aid and quietly fund vigilante action that protects vulnerable groups. If you played the first Baldur's Gate game, then there are some Patriot Families that are listed in Descent into Avernus that you may recognise, as we encountered some of their ancestors in the original game. Duke Belt, who is present at Saravak's coronation, his family is involved in the sale and exchange of horses. Duke Elton, the founder and leader of the Flaming Fist, as well as a duke during the game, you may remember that he was the victim of an assassination attempt. his family is still present in Baldur's Gate to this day, but they sold their interest in the mercenary group. The Jarzo family is described as being part owner of the struggling Seven Sons trading coster. In the original game, we could rescue the owner of the Seven Sons trading coster who had been trapped in the basement by doppelgangers. He was simply called Jarzo. The Shasentar family is described as owning shipping, mining and textile operations. We can come across Aldeth Shasentar in the Cloakwood. He is there for a hunting trip and requires our help against some druids. If we side with the druids and kill Aldeth, then his brother Dabron will confront us later in Baldur's Gate. Interestingly, Dabron is partly responsible for the ultimate downfall of the Iron Throne, but this is detailed in lore outside of the video games. Okay, so back to the 15th century. In the current year, the Grand Duke is Ulder Ravengard, with the three other dukes being Belynne Stelmane, Dillard Portyr and Thalamra Vanthampur. It's safe to say that this isn't a stable council, given that currently Belynne Stelmane is under the mental possession of a mind flayer. Dillard Portyr is a rather complacent duke, more bothered about the luxuries that come with his title rather than doing anything of worth for the city, and Thalamra Vanthampur is described in Descent into Avernus as acid-tongued, shrewd and aggressive. There is opportunity in the Descent into Avernus campaign to expose her as a devil worshipper, or even to kill her, and as she isn't spoken about in the canon Infernal Tides, which covers the events of Descent into Avernus, it will be interesting to see what Wizards of the Coast have decided her fate will be canonically. As for Ulder Ravengard, he was tricked into going to Elturel during the events of Descent into Avernus. Although the city was saved and Ravengard escaped the Hells, during the early access of Act 1 in Baldur's Gate 3, he was captured by the Cult of the Absolute and brought to Moonrise Towers, the consequences of which could be disastrous for the city of Baldur's Gate if the Marshal of the Flaming Fist and Grand Duke becomes a true soul. However, even Ulder Ravengard's mere absence could be a threat to the city. The Marshal and Grand Duke is by all accounts incorruptible and a thorn in the side of the Guild, the organised criminal network of the city. Not only that, but he is a strong leader, capable of maintaining order without resorting to oppression. However, in Descent into Avernus, the following is said regarding Ravengard's absence. Without Ulder Ravengard to stay their hand, Flaming Fist captains are brutally exercising their autonomy under the veneer of maintaining order. They've closed the outer gates to keep Baldur's Gate safe from the refugee threat, effectively trapping Baldurians behind their own walls. With the Flaming Fist distracted by the refugee crisis, city folk are being hunted and murdered in the streets by cultists of the Dead Three. Of course, these cultists are being funded by Duke Thalamra for her own sinister plots, but I wonder if this will be explored in Baldur's Gate 3 when we arrive at the city. Anyway, it is safe to say that the city of Baldur's Gate is trapped in a rather unstable political sphere. So how does Baldur's Gate hold up compared to the other cities in the Lord's Alliance? Well, according to the Forgotten Realms Campaign Guide 2008, the city's population has now surpassed Waterdeep. This might be partly down to the flood of refugees, or it could be because the price of citizenship is only 2 silver pieces. The Forgotten Realms Campaign Guide continues to describe Baldur's Gate as a prosperous city, and the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide elaborates on this by saying, Baldur's Gate is a place of commerce, and the city enjoys great success handling the coins of other powers and making them its own. I suppose in a sense, Baldur's Gate is almost like the Switzerland of Faerun, with it also being described as a city that refuses to be drawn into local political conflicts. The city-state has remained neutral through any number of regional disagreements. This policy has created an environment where no nation or city-state bears Baldur's Gate ill will. Although this neutrality may keep them out of most conflicts, there is no doubt that merchants of Luskan and Waterdeep are jealous of the city's rapid rise in economical power. Outside of the Lord's Alliance, Baldur's Gate's chief rival is Arm. In the original Baldur's Gate game, war nearly erupted between the two during the Iron Crisis. I've spoken about how Baldur's Gate functions politically, but how does the Lord's Alliance function? At the core of the Lord's Alliance is the idea that communities with a common cause that engage in trade are less likely to go to war with one another. This mentality helps to keep peace between the cities. However, the cities that are a part of the Lord's Alliance are still very much loyal to themselves, with their loyalty to the Lord's Alliance coming second. It is also a relatively recent invention. The Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide is set in the year 1489 DR, and the Lord's Alliance is described as being only 150 years old. The cities in the Alliance share information with each other and combat shared threats, such as Orc hordes and Northlander pirates, but individual merchants are unlikely to care about the alliance compared to how much they can use it in their favour to line their own pockets. Cities like Baldur's Gate, Mirabar, Neverwinter, Silvery Moon and Waterdeep extend their influence into nearby regions, often creating or accepting vassal settlements, but ultimately the region as a whole fares better under a city-state structure due to the harsh winters, monsters and human barbarians that stalk outlying settlements. The Lord's Alliance have, on occasion, worked together to combat larger threats like the Cult of the Dragon and the Zhentarim. In fact, according to the 3rd edition Forgotten Realms campaign guide, the Lord's Alliance was largely formed to combat the threats of the Shadow Thieves of Arm and the Zhentarim, both of which were menaces to the trade between the cities of the Lord's Alliance. Anyway, it's safe to say that the political landscape of the Sword Coast is vast enough to make several videos on, with each city having unique circumstances. Whilst Baldur's Gate has its problems mainly rooted in corruption, it is no doubt one of the fastest growing cities upon the whole of Faerun, and has an intriguing and dangerous political sphere. Okay, thanks for watching guys. This video idea was suggested by a patron. If you'd like to have some say in the content of my videos, then I provided the link to my Patreon page down below. If you enjoyed the video, then do please give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!